It started with a shoe. Just one. Lying on the sidewalk like it had been dropped in the middle of a getaway, a slender black heel with a broken strap and a smudge of lipstick on the toe. No one around it. No explanation. Just sitting there, right outside the elevator doors of that rooftop parking structure where I waited, engine idling, heart pounding like it knew something I didn't. I hadn't planned on being there. I hadn't even told her I was coming. But something was off that night. You ever get that sharp, silent alarm inside your chest that doesn't scream but gnaws? That was me, gnawing doubt, sweaty palms, and one too many glances at the digital clock on the dashboard. She was supposed to be home by 11. At 11:43, I was already parked 3 blocks from the corporate party she'd told me wasn't worth attending. Funny how the party she dismissed in passing ended up unraveling everything. I waited at first. I wasn't going to go in. That's not who I am. I don't check up on people. I don't storm buildings or shout accusations. I stew. I overthink. I tell myself it's probably fine. But then I saw a couple stumble out of the glass doors, laughing, kissing, heels clacking, his hand up her back like they were invisible. That's when the world began tilting. Then I saw her. And I didn't recognize her. Bryn was always graceful, polished, controlled. But this version of her was different. Hair tangled like it had been gripped. Lipstick smeared like a rush job. That dress, it was more a statement than an outfit. Low-cut, backless, dangerous. And clinging to her arm was a man in a suit too shiny to be honest. She wasn't looking around. She wasn't searching for me. She didn't expect me. That's when the heel must have broken. She stumbled. Laughed. He steadied her by the waist like he'd done it before. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just stepped out of the car and walked toward the shoe. I picked it up. And that's when she saw me. The laughter died on her lips like someone flipped a switch. Her body tensed. The man beside her paused, eyes narrowing. She said nothing. Not even my name. I held the shoe up, not like a weapon, more like a question. This yours? It was all I could say. She didn't answer. Just took a shaky step back and reached for the wall like the building might swallow her whole. The man muttered something, too low to hear, then slipped inside like he had no interest in scenes. We were alone. Her and me. In the shoe. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. But it was too late. She'd already said everything. Without a word. She got into the car without saying a word. No apology, no explanation, not even a glance in my direction. Just sat there, in that ridiculous dress, with mascara tracing tiny rivers under her eyes. She didn't buckle her seatbelt. She didn't ask where we were going. She just folded her hands in her lap like she'd accepted some invisible sentence I hadn't even spoken yet. I didn't start the engine right away. I just stared at the steering wheel, trying to keep my breathing even, trying not to scream into the air or slam my fists into the dashboard. The shoe she dropped earlier sat on the passenger seat between us like an awkward witness. I don't even know why I brought it. Maybe I thought if she saw it, she'd say something human. But she didn't. She just stared forward, blinking slowly like each moment took effort. When I finally turned the key and started driving, the sound of the engine felt like it shattered something fragile. The city outside blurred past us, traffic lights, late-night bars, the occasional lonely pedestrian, all of it moving too fast, too bright, too normal. Meanwhile, the car felt like a sealed tomb. I didn't expect you to come, she finally said, barely above a whisper. It was the only thing she said the entire ride. I clenched the wheel tighter. That makes 2 of us. She turned her face toward the window after that. Maybe to hide her tears, maybe to hide the fact that she wasn't crying at all. We didn't argue. Not then. I think we were both too scared of what we'd hear if we started speaking honestly. But there was a moment, just a second, where we stopped at a red light and the soft golden glow from a nearby diner washed over her face. That's when I noticed it, a faint smear of someone else's cologne on her collarbone. Not mine. Not ours. The smell hit me like a punch. That was when the silence stopped feeling peaceful. It became a war zone. Every second ticked louder. My heartbeat was in my throat. I wanted to ask her who he was, how long it had been going on, if this was the first time or just the first time I was too dumb to notice. But I didn't. I just drove. When we pulled into our driveway, she didn't move. She just sat there like she didn't recognize the house anymore. I got out first, walked around the car, opened her door. Not like a gentleman, more like a robot following a script written long before everything broke. She stepped out slowly, barefoot now, the heel still sitting on her seat. Then she said something that chilled me deeper than anything else that night. Can we pretend you didn't see that? I stopped dead in my tracks. That's what she chose to say? Not, I'm sorry. It's not what it looked like. Not even, I'll explain. Just pretend? She looked at me like a stranger, like someone rehearsing lines for a scene they never expected to perform in front of their spouse. I didn't answer. I walked inside, left the door open behind me. She followed. Inside, the house felt smaller than usual. The walls seemed too close. The pictures on the walls, wedding photos, vacations, that goofy shot of us on Halloween, they all felt like lies now. Echoes of a play we were pretending to believe in. She went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, gripping the edge so tightly my knuckles went white. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit. I just stood there, lights off, in the quiet of our home, realizing it had never really been mine. And upstairs, she slept. Or pretended to. Either way, I heard nothing. And that, somehow, was louder than any confession she could have made. By the time the sun finally bled through the blinds, I hadn't closed my eyes once. I stayed planted in the kitchen like the floor had grown roots around my shoes. My back ached, my legs were stiff, and my mind, it felt like a room full of televisions blaring on different channels. Her laugh, that man's hand on her back, the broken heel. Can we pretend you didn't see that? It looped endlessly. But the worst part wasn't what I'd seen, it was what I hadn't. What had happened before I got there? At 6:12 a.m., I finally climbed the stairs. The bedroom door was half open. I pushed it slowly, careful not to make a sound. She was asleep, or at least lying perfectly still, her arm curled under the pillow, her hair a mess, makeup still smudged across her cheeks. She hadn't even washed her face. I watched her chest rise and fall for a few moments and waited for something inside me to ignite, anger, grief, anything. But nothing came, just numbness. I went into the bathroom and shut the door. Sat on the closed toilet lid like a man who didn't recognize his own reflection anymore. The smell of her perfume still lingered in the air, sweet, floral, layered now with traces of sweat and guilt. I saw the lipstick she'd used on the counter. Not her usual shade. Deeper, bolder. Someone else's choice? Then I noticed her phone on the counter next to it. I didn't go through it. Not at first. But when I reached to move it out of habit, the screen lit up. Had a good time tonight. Worth every risk. A text. No name. Just a number. No picture. Another followed. Hope he didn't get too suspicious. The blood drained from my face. I didn't need context. My chest tightened like someone had tied a belt around my lungs. She stirred in bed. I backed out of the bathroom, set the phone down exactly where it was, and walked into the hallway like a ghost. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to shout, demand answers, throw those texts in her face. But instead, I stood outside the bedroom door and I listened. And that's when it happened. She answered a call. I heard the rustle of sheets. A sleepy voice. Hey. Yeah. I'm still in bed. No, he didn't say a word. A pause. He just stood there. I don't know, like he expected it. Then a low laugh. No. He won't do anything. He never does. That was the moment. That was when I broke. She wasn't just cheating on me. She knew she could. She tested the limits of my silence and realized I had none. I stepped back from the door and nearly tripped over myself. I wanted to scream, throw something, do anything to break the image of her lying there, whispering to him, laughing about me. Instead, I went downstairs. Again. Because that's what I do, right? I go downstairs. I make coffee. I clean up messes. I carry the weight no one sees. That morning, I realized that I had let myself become background noise in my own marriage, a placeholder for comfort while she auditioned for passion elsewhere. She came down 2 hours later, wearing one of my old shirts like nothing had happened. I couldn't even look at her. She poured herself coffee like it was any other Saturday. And then she had the nerve to ask, "You're quiet today. Everything okay?" I stared at her. I mean, really stared. And for the first time in our 6 years of marriage, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger. And I had no idea what she was capable of next. I didn't answer her question. I couldn't. My mouth felt like it was filled with concrete, and the words just wouldn't come out. Instead, I grabbed my keys and walked out the front door, leaving my untouched coffee cooling on the counter. I didn't even know where I was going. I just had to get out of that house. Away from her voice. Away from her eyes, those eyes that used to soften when she looked at me and now just scanned the room like I was barely a fixture in it. I ended up in the parking lot of a strip mall 15 minutes from home. I sat in my car, engine off, door halfway open, watching people come and go. A dad holding his daughter's hand as they left a donut shop. A couple laughing as they argued over which movie to see. Strangers. Ordinary strangers. Living ordinary lives. And all I could think was, how many of them are carrying betrayals they never speak of? How many are just pretending? By the time I got back home, she was in the shower. The house smelled like lavender shampoo. I could hear the water pounding against the tile, echoing through the pipes like a heartbeat. I walked past our wedding photo in the hallway. I used to love that picture. Her smile looked real. My arms wrapped around her waist, both of us unaware of the ways time would unravel us. Now, it looked like a prop from a show that had been canceled. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more than texts. More than whispers. I needed her to admit it. To say it out loud. I needed that moment, that confirmation, so I could stop hoping she'd tell me the truth on her own. That afternoon, I went into her office upstairs. She'd left it unlocked. A few weeks ago, she started keeping a drawer locked with a little gold key she wore around her neck. I used to think it was where she kept company documents. She mentioned NDAs and contracts and sensitive planning materials. But that afternoon, while she was out grocery shopping like we were still playing house, I finally found the second key hidden in the back of her makeup drawer, taped beneath a tray of eyeshadow palettes. I opened the drawer with shaking hands. Inside were things that didn't belong in a marriage. A thin black folder. Inside it, printouts of hotel confirmations. Dates. Names. Rooms. Receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. A ticket stub to a jazz show she claimed was girls' night. There were 2 seats on that stub. Not 1. 2. Then, tucked beneath all of that, an envelope. It had my name on it. Lowell. Written in her handwriting. I opened it like I was disarming a bomb. Inside was a letter. Not long. Not angry. Just cold. It started with, "If you're reading this, I guess you found out." She explained how she hadn't planned it, that things just happened. She claimed it wasn't about love or lust but about feeling alive. She said she still cared for me, but in a way that felt safe and comfortable like an old sweater. The kind you outgrow but keep around out of habit. At the bottom, she wrote, "Please don't make this ugly. I never meant to hurt you. Let's try to be adults about this." My hands were trembling. My face burned. The ceiling felt like it was getting lower by the second. She wrote that letter assuming I would accept it. That I'd read it, cry maybe, and then help her divide the furniture like 2 civilized friends at the end of a sitcom. She really thought I'd stay quiet. That night, I said nothing again. We ate in silence. She chatted about traffic and spinach and whether we needed new blinds. I nodded, smiled where appropriate, played my role. But the letter, I had it in my pocket the entire time, folded perfectly, waiting. And when she went upstairs to get ready for bed, I slipped it out and placed it on her pillow. Except I didn't leave it alone. I added a second envelope. Inside that one, all the photos I printed from her folder. Hotel receipts. The ticket stub. A copy of the text messages. I labeled it, "In case you forgot what honesty looks like." Then I went asleep on the couch. I didn't sleep, but I waited, because morning would come. And when it did, she'd finally have to speak. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up to the sound of footsteps, slow, cautious, almost rehearsed. The morning light was just starting to seep through the living room curtains, turning everything this washed-out gray that made the room feel like a stage. I didn't move, just kept my eyes closed and listened. She was standing at the top of the stairs, frozen. I could feel it, that charged silence, the one that lives right before everything breaks. A moment later, I heard her retreating back into the bedroom. The door didn't slam. She closed it carefully, like she thought maybe she could still control the fallout if she was quiet enough. For the next 20 minutes, nothing. Then the sound of her heels clicking softly on the hardwood. She walked down the stairs like she was heading toward a funeral. And in a way, she was. When I opened my eyes, she was standing across from me in the living room. Fully dressed. Makeup already on. Not her usual weekend at home look, no sweatpants, no oversized t-shirt. She looked like she was ready to deliver a pitch to a boardroom full of executives. Like she'd put on armor. The envelope was in her hand. "You went through my things," she said. Not a question. A statement. Flat. Controlled. Like she was the one who'd been wronged. "I did," I said, sitting up slowly. My back cracked from the stiff couch cushion. "And I left something for you too. Right where I knew you'd find it." She stared at me. Cold. Calculating. Like she was mentally running through a checklist. Image control. Tone control. Damage control. "I suppose you think that changes everything," she said. "It doesn't change anything," I replied. "It just confirms it." We stood there, 10 feet apart, the letter still dangling from her fingers like it burned. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't even flinch. "You were never supposed to see that," she finally muttered, looking past me now, like the couch or the wall behind me was easier to face than I was. "You were never supposed to write it," I snapped, my voice cracking in a way I hated. "But you did. And you kept it. Like a safety net for when things got inconvenient." Her face tightened. That perfect composure faltered for the briefest moment. "I didn't keep it as a safety net," she said. "I kept it because I didn't know how to end this." "End this?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean us?" She didn't answer. "You already ended it, Bryn," I continued. "You ended it the second you looked at me like I was just some background character in your new life." She stepped forward. "Lowell, don't turn this into a melodrama. We both know things haven't been right for a while." "Yeah," I said. "But I was still here. I was still trying. You just stopped telling me the truth." "I stopped telling you things because you didn't want to hear them," she fired back. "You wanted everything to be simple. You wanted me to come home and play house while you, what? Lived your little routines and ignored the fact that I was drowning? That was it." The mask cracked. The real version of her, the one she kept hidden behind soft smiles and empty apologies, stepped forward. "I didn't cheat on you to hurt you," she said, voice trembling now. "I did it because I needed something to feel like mine again." "So you picked him?" I asked. "The guy with the cologne and the shiny suit and the smug little smirk? That was your salvation." She looked away. "Tell me something," I said, my voice quieter now. "Did you ever think about me? Even once? In that hotel room? Or did I just stop existing the second the door closed behind you?" She finally sat down. Not across from me, on the arm of a chair, like she didn't want to fully inhabit the space. Her hands were shaking now. The letter trembled between her fingers. "I did think about you," she said. "That's what made it worse." We sat in silence after that. Not because everything was said, but because neither of us knew where to go from there. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw someone I couldn't follow anymore. Someone who had written a goodbye long before I had the chance to ask why. That morning, we didn't fight. We didn't scream. We just began the quiet unraveling. And I started planning what came next, not out of revenge, not out of anger, but because I finally realized I was done waiting to matter. The day after our non-confrontation, the house settled into a silence that didn't feel like peace. It felt like standing in the middle of a minefield after the war has ended, knowing the danger is still beneath your feet. Bryn moved through the house like nothing had happened. She made breakfast. She watered the plants. She hummed a song in the bathroom mirror while curling her hair. The only sign that anything had changed was how she never looked directly at me for more than 2 seconds. I kept playing the fool. Not out of cowardice, but calculation. I wasn't ready to confront her again. Not yet. Not until I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and how I wanted her to hear it. I'd spent years being quiet, being small, trying not to rock the boat. But now, I realized the boat had been sinking for a long time, and I was the only one bailing water while she danced on the deck. That night, she said she had dinner plans with the girls. I didn't ask which ones. I didn't ask anything. Just nodded and smiled. When she walked out the door, wearing the same scent I smelled on her after the party, I didn't stop her. I waited exactly 7 minutes, then grabbed my jacket and followed. I wasn't proud of it. I didn't want to be the guy sneaking around. But when you're living with someone who's already lied to your face, you stop caring about dignity. You start needing truth. I stayed far enough behind her car not to be seen. She didn't head toward any restaurant. She drove straight to a high-rise downtown, not a home, not a club, a private suite building. I parked across the street, turned off my engine, and waited. She entered with a keycard. That told me everything. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 45. I don't know what I was hoping for, some kind of cosmic interruption? Her coming back out in tears? A realization that she'd made a mistake? None of that happened. Instead, the front lights dimmed around the hour mark. And that's when I left. Because I didn't need to see more. I didn't need to look through a window. I'd already done enough damage to myself. What I needed was clarity. And I finally had it. She had replaced me. Emotionally, physically, entirely. And yet, she was still coming home to my house, sleeping in my bed, pretending to be my wife. I drove home slowly, my knuckles white around the steering wheel. The streetlights passed overhead like ticking metronomes. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I felt hollow. Not the kind of hollow you cry about. The kind you rebuild from. Back home, I walked into the guest bedroom, a room we hadn't used in years. I stripped the bed. changed the sheets. I needed something that didn't smell like her. Then I opened the closet and started pulling out my things, piece by piece. Not throwing them into a bag, but folding them, stacking them, setting them in boxes I found in the basement. She came back a little after midnight. I heard the door open, her keys hit the bowl by the entryway, her heels come off. I kept my door shut. She knocked. Softly. "Lowell." I said nothing. "Are you awake?" I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. The nervous edge. She had walked into this house expecting the same dynamic, quiet, spineless, passive Lowell. But now the guest room door was shut. Now the silence wasn't peace, it was distance. "I didn't expect you to move in here," she said after a pause. I still didn't answer. Because what was there to say? The next morning, I left before she woke up. I took one of the boxes with me. Drove it to a self-storage unit I'd rented online during the night. The manager looked at me like he'd seen this kind of story before. No ID check. No small talk. Just handed me the key and told me which door was mine. That night, I left another box. And the night after that, another. I didn't announce anything. I didn't slam doors. I didn't burn clothes or write dramatic goodbye notes. I just began to disappear. Slowly. Quietly. Piece by piece. And she noticed. She started asking questions. "Where are you going? Why are half your shirts gone? Why is your shaving kit missing?" I told her nothing. Because now, she was the one in the dark. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had the power to choose what came next. It was a Thursday night when she finally snapped. I had just gotten home from work, later than usual, deliberately, and stepped into the hallway to find her sitting on the stairs, barefoot, hugging one knee to her chest like a teenager waiting to be scolded. She didn't say a word right away. She just watched me hang my jacket like it was the first time she'd ever seen me do it. Then, her voice cut through the stillness like a blade. "Why are half your things gone?" I didn't look at her. I took my time, placing my keys in the bowl, slipping off my shoes, walking into the kitchen like it was any other night. She followed me. I heard her footsteps behind me, fast and uneven. "Lowell, I'm asking you something. What are you doing?" I turned around slowly. There was no outburst, no dramatic confrontation. I just met her eyes and asked calmly, "Do you really want to know? Or are you just scared now that you're losing control?" That stopped her. She blinked hard, as if trying to reset herself. Then her tone shifted. Softer. Coaxing. "You're scaring me a little." "You were never scared when you were sleeping with someone else," I said. Her lips parted like she was about to protest, but the words never came. Instead, she took a step forward, as if proximity could undo what she'd done. "I thought we could get through this," she said, and I nearly laughed. "You mean after you got caught?" "No," she said quickly. "I mean, before that. I always thought it would pass. That we were just in a rough patch. I didn't mean to let it go this far." I walked past her, opened the fridge, and pulled out a bottle of water. I didn't offer her one. She stood in the middle of the kitchen like an actor who'd lost their lines. "You didn't let it go this far," I said. "You walked it there. You drove. You booked the rooms. You answered the texts. You made the calls." Her voice trembled now. "I was lost, Lowell. You were available, Bryn." Silence. Then, almost pathetically, she whispered, "I don't want to lose you." I let the words hang in the air. She didn't want to lose me. Not when she'd already thrown me away and kept me on a shelf in case her new life didn't work out. I finally looked at her, really looked. Her mascara was perfect this time. Her dress well-fitted. But the panic in her eyes told me she wasn't ready for the version of me that had stopped waiting for her to change. "You're not losing me," I said. "You already did. You just didn't notice until the drawer was empty." That night, I slept in the guest room again. She didn't knock. She didn't say goodnight. But just before midnight, I heard her walk down the hallway. She stood outside the door for a long time. I didn't move. I didn't open it. I didn't say her name. Eventually, I heard her walk away. The next day, I worked from a cafe. I needed distance. Clarity. I spent the whole afternoon researching apartments. Studios. One-bedrooms. Quiet streets. No shared memories. No photos on the walls of a wedding that meant nothing anymore. When I came home that night, the bedroom closet was wide open. Empty. She had packed all of her own things. And on the nightstand, there was a note. Just one line. "If you leave, I won't fight you." No apology. No begging. Just that. I stared at the paper until my eyes hurt. And for the first time since the night of the party, I felt something close to peace. Not because she was gone, but because I was finally free to go too. The house was quiet that morning. Not the kind of hollow, echoing quiet that makes your chest tighten, but a stillness that felt earned. The kind that comes after a storm is past. Her car was gone. No note beyond that single line she left the night before. No suitcase by the door. No forced conversations over coffee. Just space. I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, looking at the closet she had cleared out. The scent of her perfume was still faint in the air, like a final whisper. But I didn't feel sadness. Not anymore. What I felt was something I hadn't allowed myself in years. Relief. I didn't pack the rest of my boxes that day. I didn't go searching for another apartment. I sat on the back porch instead, wrapped in an old hoodie, sipping coffee from the chipped mug she always said we should throw out. I watched the sun rise slowly over the neighbors' rooftops, casting golden light on everything it touched. It had been so long since I noticed something as simple as the warmth of a quiet morning. Later that week, I got a text from her. "I'm staying at my sister's. I won't come back unless you ask me to." I never replied, and she never returned. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. At first, that meant small things, new curtains, rearranging the furniture, repainting the hallway where our wedding photo used to hang. It felt silly at first, but with every change I made, the space began to feel like mine again. Like I wasn't living inside the wreckage of someone else's life. I started journaling, cooking more, running after work. I began to check in with friends I hadn't spoken to in months, people I'd pushed away without realizing it, too embarrassed to explain why I'd faded. One of them, Maya, invited me out for coffee. It wasn't a date. Not at first. Just two people reconnecting. But she listened. Really listened. And when I told her the story, not all the ugly details, just enough to explain the weight I'd been carrying, she didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me with something warmer. Something real. Weeks passed. Then months. Bryn sent one more message in December, just a simple, "I hope you're doing well." I didn't reply to that either. Because by then, I finally was. I'd taken a breath. A real one. The kind that fills your lungs with something other than fear or regret. And one morning, standing in the same driveway where I'd first seen her stumble out of that building with her hair a mess and guilt written all over her face, I looked at the space where she used to park and smiled. Not because I missed her. Not because I hated her. But because that part of my life, the part that hurt, that questioned, that ached quietly for someone to choose me, was over. I had finally chosen myself. And for the first time in a very long time, that was enough.